Welcome everyone. Today we're here to talk about automated learning and the gating tool in K-State Online. Shalin is going to start by talking about automated learning a little bit, and then the second half of this presentation we'll log into K-State Online and show you how that works. So let's Shalin start.
Okay, I'd like to begin actually by asking you all sort of why you're here and to maybe get a sense of what it is you would like to learn or take away from this presentation. And then I'll try to integrate a response to any potential questions. So anyone want to volunteer some ideas or? You're smiling. Oh, because you're smiling.
Yeah, I will start. I'm from the English language program, and we teach English to the foreign students who come. And we're especially interested in the gated learning and the automatic learning as a kind of orientation tool for our students, because when students come, they come at different levels, and we would like them to be able to go through orientation, perhaps related to custom semesters also. So be interested to hear related to custom semesters, so that some of them can do certain parts of the orientation when they're ready for it.
So the idea of a custom semester is you create a semester that can work into perpetuity, that it's something you create and it's always live and students can access that. Okay, excellent. Thank you. What about others?
I'm relatively new here, and next fall I'm going to be teaching a course that'll have a live audience in the classroom, but I also have a distance learning component to it. So I'm looking at all the technology that's available. Every time something like this comes up, I know it. So.
Okay, that's a great reason. Thank you. Others? Yes.
I am master students in instruction, curriculum and instruction, focusing on e-learning. So I'd like to gain any experience to transfer to my country, Saudi Arabia. I'm a teacher there, and I'm interested in anything related on integrating computer or interactive learning, things like that.
Okay, good. So you're a graduate student and a researcher in the College of Education.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Good. I'm glad you're here.
I'm from the Disability Support Services Office, and I've been building actually a K-State Online kind of course around educating people and creating accessible content, online content.
We do have to talk because our office has been making a module on that. So, on K-State Online.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Others? Yes.
I'm from the College of Education as well, and we're looking to create, we have an advising course for our undergraduate students, and we're kind of looking to create some modules as part of that course for student learning and also evaluation to make sure they've been through the training or an online training type thing and advising as part of that course.
Very good. So you'll evaluate their knowledge level about certain things?
And mostly just to make sure that they've read through it and completed the modules.
Okay.
Instead of having an in-class time of doing assignments and things, we can do that. We hope to do it that way online.
Yes, you can create automated assessments, and you can do some basic learner tracking using gating, which Shashti is going to be talking about. So that's a good question to have ready as well. Any other ideas before we get started? Or as we get started? Okay, I'm going to do a PowerPoint first, and then and then at any time, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or just ask out the question, and Shashti and I will both try to answer. So. Okay, I think we should begin with a very basic definition of what automated learning is, because those of you who have been in e-learning know there are multitudes of new terminology and old terminology used in different ways. So Automated learning is non-instructor led. Okay? And this is one of the major reasons for automation is because you take out the human element because people cost money, sadly. And you'll see that this is one of the strengths of automation, and it's also one of the major weaknesses. And we'll look at mitigations for that weakness, how to make automated learning more effective, given its nature. You can have automated learning with or without co-learners. Okay? So some automated learning is just an individual with the computer. And that is typically called, in the next bullet, computer-based training, if it's just you and your computer not linked to the World Wide Web. Or if it's you or one person and your computer, then that becomes, and it's on the internet, then we come on to the web-based training. So that's WBT. But the basic core here is an individual interacting with a programmed machine, with a programmed computer. And it is human programmed, human created in some ways. Okay, so sometimes automated learning is boxed, or you have tangible materials like a CD or a DVD that you put in your machine, and it's just you interacting then with the software, right, on what is created. So you can actually have this sent out and have a person do it with no connection to the World Wide Web even, right, for automated learning. And then now you also have, in recent years, you have more immersive virtual learning spaces where you create an online virtual environment, like Second Life in a sense, right? Except you can create that and have automated agents or robots that will interact with you. So there could be no live people at all in your 3D space, and it's just you interacting with every element in your environment. And from the computer view, you know, if there is some interaction or some behavior, that is also called a bot or a robot. It's not just an avatar that looks like an animal or a person, right? So anything that you can interact with in the environment is a kind of robot. And you can have animations and simulations. You can have drill learning. So for foreign language acquisition, sometimes you just have to memorize the terminology or the words or the phrases or some of the contexts. And so you have what is called repeatability in automated learning. So you can repeat it again and again. So when you come up to a tough section of learning, you can keep practicing. Most of automated learning today is multimedia or has rich media, and you can track learners on some of them, okay? In terms of their performance. Using learning management systems or immersive systems, you can generally track people with CDs and DVDs. Obviously, there's no learner tracking. Okay, so a very brief touch on theory. The pedagogical theory behind automated learning is this is called instructionism or instructivism versus constructivism. So this automated learning discourages consideration for community or for your co-learners. It's more about learning that you do as an individual, so it's you and the materials, you and the computer. There's some concept here of knowledge transmission versus knowledge construction. Okay, and that has implications on what automation is used for. And then we have some experiential learning theory like Kolb's and Jacques. They also have some, their ideas also apply because you're creating an immersive, digitized learning experience for your learners. So as you can imagine, if you design automated learning, there's a lot of thinking you'll be needing to do to create a whole experience. And of course, his experiential learning cycle, you experience an event, you describe and share the events, you interpret, you develop some generalizations of that experience, and then you prepare for next ones. And when you interpret events and form relationships, these are like cognitive relationships, right? So this does not necessarily imply any facilitation by a person. It doesn't suggest a group or a community. So when we talk about automated learning, okay, what does it tend to look like? It tends to be closed-ended versus open-ended. This means the learning is predetermined. You decide at the beginning what learning will happen, and it's not really emergent, okay? For those of you who are instructors, you're learning, if you are a very flexible teacher, if you have a great learning moment, you will follow that learning and you will change the direction of your class. That's called emergent learning. That means you're willing to let your students create a curriculum or decide on projects that they will do, and you together form learning. For a lot of automated learning, this is already predetermined. So you're not open to new directions per se, or it's harder to create that. It tends to be summative versus formative in terms of assessment. So you're not assessing them continuously and building the learning in a way that changes per se. Tends to be direct learning and explicit learning. In automated learning, you've got to watch out for unintended consequences of learning, right? Because if it's just the student and the knowledge, without expert mediation or other mediation, a person can form a wrong mental model, and there may be no way to address how to head that off or to find out where their mistakes are. And a lot of this learning is non-perishable and it's storable. So in other words, you can use it again and again. You can add different elements to add value to the learning. However, all information will need updating at some point. So, you know, it's not as if it'll be good into forever, but it does last longer. So why do people want to automate learning? If we take a larger view, one is, and this is a poor way to say this, but in the article it says offloading the instructor. So they want to get rid of the instructor because instructors cost money. They're temperamental. They have life issues. Yeah, it's true. That's what. Oh, you're shocked at the concept of that? Yes. These are real people. So the ability, you can reach a wide population of learners through the World Wide Web, wherever people have web connectivity, and whatever intermediary software to do the automation. You can get instant feedback for your learners. You can have it available 24/7, 365. You can track learners in some of the systems. You have, and this is really important for companies, you have consistent knowledge representation. So if for example, Microsoft, the guy who works at Microsoft turns out a training that's automated for 90,000 staff members worldwide. And they all have to take it because it's compliance. So he creates automated learning, he runs them through, he knows they all have to take it to get their paychecks, right? And so automated learning is used in a lot of different ways. So it's very portable, very convenient, particularly for multinational, international companies. And if you are a global university, in that sense, you can then reach many of the people that you're trying to train. And then it's pretty rapid and easy to do updates to the system in general, if you designed it right at the beginning. Automation is also used as a supplement to other types of learning. So for those of you who are teaching online and you have a human component, the high interactivity, there may be a piece of it where you want people to go through the automated part. So if you want them to have some pre-knowledge, to get ready, to warm up to understanding certain things, you maybe will create an automated piece, right? Or if there's a certain segment to the learning, if you're using e-portfolios and you want students to know what e-portfolios are, but you don't have a person to lead that because it's expensive and messy and so on, then this might be an option. You can also data mine, aggregate people's behaviors. That means you can query your system and say, where are people spending a lot of time? What questions do most people miss? What feedback do we get in terms of aggregate group behavior? and then build and then change your training based on the feedback that you get. And there is also the hope of lower on-the-job training time, because automated training is not only delivered through your laptops, but they can be delivered through mobile devices. Many of you have heard of augmented reality or ubiquitous learning or mobile learning. The mobility is the idea that you could be anywhere at any time with your BlackBerry or your iPod or some other devices, and you can then access certain types of training. And they now can connect a lot of mobile learning to a learning management system to give you a grade. And the basic testing is just true, false, multiple choice, very basic, but the learning is not hugely in-depth in those cases currently. Any questions or comments so far? Are you with me, or? Okay. Okay. And I'm sorry for the sort of academese sort of terms, but when you read a little bit much on these, it sometimes seeps into the work, and I'll try to get off that. But so when would you want to automate in a pedagogical teaching sense? When the learning is very straightforward and non-complex. So if you're trying to teach someone how to be creative, how to be their own individual, to develop a sense of voice, to build their own learning portfolio, this may not be the best way to do it, because it's pretty automated, pretty traditionalist sort of learning. Generally, if people in the field agree on the information you're presenting and is non-controversial, that also helps. And then if it's a certain process or rules that you're trying to train people on, so for compliance trainings, for example, if you have some simple desktop exercises or training simulations, you often see automation. If there's a clear decision sequencing, if you want to get people warmed up to learning about a certain topic, and then also if you have just small nuggets of information to prevent knowledge or skills decay. Okay, those are generally when people automate. When not to automate, and this actually applies to probably a majority of university teaching, hopefully, in that sense. You know, when there's insufficient development of curriculum, or when something is controversial, when you need creativity, when you need complex thinking, and when there's a high potential for what's called negative learning or negative side effects, incorrect assumptions, then you want to avoid automated learning, because there's not that intervention piece where a person comes in and says, hey, wait, what do you think? You should also not automate if the technology is not very accessible, because you need digital learning objects that are interoperable, that are interchangeable, if at all possible. That means they can be used on different systems or on different browsers. If your information is constantly changing, you may not want to automate. And you also do not want to have inaccessible technologies for the automated learning. If you want a sense of community with other live, living human beings, then you also may be very careful not to automate that part where they have to interact with each other. When your learners come from different cultures or backgrounds, you need to have more human mediation, right? More of a faculty presence, or a graduate, research assistant sort of, or TA interventions for communications. So you need to, and whenever an instructor's input, nuance, professionalism, guidance, and expertise are needed, then you want to sort of maybe not automate that part of the learning. So in higher education, where do we see automated learning? The reason why, okay, so some of the things we see in higher ed are when there's high stakes training at low cost. Okay, for example, the Institutional Review Board training on human research, which many of you may have taken, is totally automated. You do the slideshows, you do the readings, and then you vouch that you have read it, and that's tied to your EID. So they have an actual time and your name authentication to say that you've been through that training, right? And that is high stakes, because if you do research that doesn't fall within the realm of the legal, there are many repercussions. You can have software training on how to use, like an e-portfolio. You have low stakes trainings, possibly. Some basic simulations of what are called wet labs in science. So like certain chemical reactions, certain dissections. It's all automated where you've practiced dissecting a digital frog and that sort of a thing. Decision-making sequencing, policy and procedure trainings, and sometimes what's called self-study, right? Where you create an orientation space where someone comes in and they say, I want to learn about, course selection. I want to learn about the culture. I want to learn about English as compared to my language, and so on. I mean, people can then self-select and go into a space and do self-selected automated learning. In industry, I used to work at Boeing years ago, and they had the Boeing Education Network with tons of automated trainings. And these companies, especially Microsoft and Cisco systems, have databases that contain all kinds of automated trainings and digital learning objects. So, and there are other repositories. The public repository for some automated learning would be Merlot for higher education, which many of you may have heard of. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit so I don't eat into Shashti's time. Let me see what. So when you think about automated learning, you do have to think about sequencing. So sequencing can be linear, where a person learns step by step by step, A, B, C, D, E, and they progress. It could be branched. So based on a person's behavior and a decision and performance, you can then program that they take a different track of learning. So they start out here, and then as you find out their language proficiency or comfort level, then they can be sent in another direction. You can have a spatial layout of learning or spatial mapping, and I can explain that in more detail, but I think I'll just kind of move along here. You can use a learner profile by looking at their backgrounds and their learning performances. You can do customized trainings based on a person's career path. The U.S. military uses this a lot based on your rank, your level, your performances. Then they will send you on certain career tracks and things that you have to take to get to the next level. You can make it learner-directed or self-selected, where you empower your learners with information and then you let them select what they want to learn about. The spatial one is actually more of like a user interface in terms of a spatial choice, where you can say, here are your options. If you want to learn about this part of the machine, click here or something, right? So there are just different ways to present that. You can make it an a la carte selection, where it's non-sequential, people just pick and choose. You can do what's called just-in-time learning, where people can just, if they need that information right then they will access that information for automated learning, like Intel and Hewlett-Packard do this a lot, where they have a decision support system where you can access it online and then find out how to put a certain component in or make changes to a machine. And then, of course, you can have experiential. The one thing that I wanted to add, I had mentioned the human. Some other parts of this talk about how you plan for automated learning, how you set that up. I'll let you deal with that on your own. You can add a human element before an automated experience. You could have one during, you could have it after, right? So it doesn't mean you have to take out the whole human piece. And just something interesting, Lena mentioned a pedagogical agent as she walked in, so I wanted to touch on that lightly. But to take the place of humans, computer scientists design agents that have emotions, values, and behaviors. It's true. And the way that they let the machine stand in for the teacher. And so you can design a pedagogical agent that looks like a human being, that can lead a person through learning, that can be like a pedagogical tutor. You can have a tutor support a person. And there's a lot of research done actually out of Japan and the US on how people respond to emotional agents. So, you know, how do you want a friend, a digital friend, to treat you? Do you want them smarter than you? And of course the answer is no. People learn best when the pedagogical agent is your same level and they're learning with you. Okay, so it's human psychology that they take into consideration. But there are different software programs and ways to create pedagogical agents. So you actually have surrogate instructors, surrogate facilitators.
Is any of that, are we using any of that here around the campus?
We haven't yet currently. There are some static pedagogical agents that people considered, which are images, and they give little advice and help sorts of things. Yeah, but in terms of the really sophisticated back end, there's a guy out of Tennessee who builds pedagogical agents, and he says that at every question, it uses natural language processing. So the bot talks like you and I would talk. It uses voice, so it talks to you in sound, so it's not just text. And he says what he does is that for every juncture, every question, he has like 30 possible options of a response. And that in general, they have not had to go beyond that. So some of them are maybe 2 or 3 possibilities. And I think 33, he said, was the maximum they've had to go to. So if you think about your teaching in the classroom and think about the types of responses you give to people and think, is it one of my 33? And if you go beyond that. And but you can see how regimented this is, right? It's a very very structured learning that will work for some types of learning and not others. And so basically, how do you mitigate automation and make it effective? You talk a lot with the students who will be studying using it. You test it a lot. Sorry about that. You add collaboration so people learn together, because people bring a lot of benefit to learning. So I know my colleagues, especially Ben in the back, was concerned when we talked about automated learning. And we were going to say, you know, getting rid of the instructor, automated learning. And he was like, no, that's not a good idea. And so I wanted to emphasize that at OME, we're all for very good quality e-learning. And it's important to sort of have that in there when we talk about automation. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this on over to Shashti.
Shalin?
Yes?
I can think of ways even in my graduate department of how we can blend the automated learning with our face-to-face courses. But again, when I think about mentioning that next week at faculty meeting, I think it's a matter of culture and convincing our department that we can blend these two styles, because, you know, in education where I teach, we come from, you know, that very strong engagement, involvement, constructivist model, and so, you know, it almost sounds like heresy. And yet for counseling licensure, for our teacher licensure, for counseling, for example, in our department, students have to, when they take the state licensing exam, they have prescribed ethics standards, for example. Well, that can easily, in my thinking, be built into automated learning and augmented by face-to-face involvement with me or other faculty. But I think it's the struggle of convincing and introducing it to our faculty that's the hard part, not the technology.
Yeah, and so Doris has the great point that, yeah, culturally in United States universities, you're not going to have a lot of buy-in for the idea of automation, which is why I think your idea of the mix, combining that is what would help, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're all accustomed to, I just did the export control training, and we're all accustomed to doing the IRB, but we see that over there, not over here.
exactly. And the export training is another very common automated training used on this campus with great information.
I mean, is the online course is considered to be as automated learning, or it's not?
Okay, that's a great question. The question is, are online courses considered automated training or not? And in general, the courses that are taught through K-State Online or Axio Learning are instructor-led,
Yeah.
instructor-mediated, so they're not automated at all. That means you talk to a live human being, you learn with live students, and you share with live students. So that's not automated. The automated takes out the instructor piece.
Is there any study or statistics comparing the outcomes of the automated learning or training to the face-to-face learning or human learning?
Yes, the question is, are there studies about the effectiveness of automated learning versus face-to-face? And yes, there are plenty. There are plenty. Business wants return on investment, so they have to justify the amounts that they put into training and the hours people spend on training. So they have to try to use quantitative measures to make sure that information is conveyed. But it's for particular types of learning, not the more complex, creative such.
Well, I'm going to show you the K-State Online part, how to create a gating section within your course. So we'll start off on the organizer page. There's a couple of things I need to mention right off the bat. You can't do gating if you don't install the component. You need to install the gating component within K-State Online, your course, otherwise you will have no gating. So what I'll do is we'll do a very small example, and I'll show you how you can create this in your own course. So let's say I choose a course, and I'm going to choose this dummy course that I created. It's called ID, Demonstration Course. And I'm going to go to my Tools page. And in the Tools page, under Course Management, I have a link called Components. And this is where I go in to actually select gating before it's available to me as an instructor. So I come in here, and it has a list of all the components possible in my course, and gating is right on the top. So I'm going to select that, and it says it has successfully, can you see that? Yeah, it's successfully installed. And I'm going to go out of there, go back to my Tools page, which is here. And now, under Course Content, I have a new link called Gating Progress. When you see that, that usually means that the gating tool is installed. Usually the gating is housed within Manage Files, but you need to see this Gating Progress link on your Course Tools page to know that it is installed in the course. So we're going to start by going into Manage Files. Now the idea behind this is obviously you've thought this out through. You've planned about it, you've thought about what you want to achieve through your gating course before you start building it. And we kind of recommend that when you start building this, start on a piece of paper. It's always better to know the whole plan for your course and what content you want students to go through and where you want the assessment pieces to fit in, rather than building as you're thinking about it. It usually doesn't work. So for this example, I've already thought about it and I've planned for it. So I'm just going to jump in and start creating it. So I'm going to click on Modules, and what you want to do is you want to start by creating a gate enable folder. So that's the first thing you need to do. Also, when you're designing your content, you want to think about the type of design that you can do. You can do a single path, or you could do a multiple path gating course. Now what that means is a single track just means you want them to start at point A and go all the way down to point C. There's just no diverting there. But if multiple path is like, you could have them access point A and point B together, or they could access different parts at different times. It's not all like, you don't see point B unless you've crossed through point A, done all the stuff, and go to point B. So those are the difference between the two. We have really good help material written on the gating within K-State Online, and usually you can access that by clicking on the help here, and I will show you very briefly what it looks like when you're designing your gates, the two different paths. Now for example, this is a one path example. As you can see, you've got it, you've started at chapter 1, and there's all the things they need to complete in chapter 1 before they get to subfolder chapter 2. Now that's a single path. A multiple path would be, and within that you can have gated or non-gated, as you can see. Some content is gated while others are not gated. And not gated just means they can access that without having to go through, not just gated means you've not set any limit or any criteria for them to cross that. They can view that content anyway. For the multiple path, as you can see, there's chapter 1 and there's chapter 2, and they pretty much can access both depending on what they wanted to do. Now, if you didn't want that, obviously you wouldn't follow multiple path. If you just wanted them to go in a linear procedure down a certain path, then I would say you'd probably want to stick to the single path idea. Coming out of that, so here we are in our modules, and what we're going to do is, now we're actually going to start creating the gate-enabled folder. So you have to create a folder. You cannot house any of your gating content unless you have a folder that's gated. So what I'll do is I'll create a folder, and I'll call it chapter 1. And I'm going to ignore that modules folder for now. And what I'm going to do is, once I've created that folder, there's this little triangular icon on this corner. I'm going to click that. And under design properties, there's this little characteristic that for the folder that you can check is enable gated content. So that's the base. That's the first step you need to do when you're creating your folders, for your gated material. You have to create it gated. You have to make it enable the folder. So once you do that, you say save, and it changes the look of the folder. Now that little icon represents that it's gated. If I was going to click through, if I had students coming through here and this icon hasn't changed, then it's not gated. So that's the difference. So I'm just going to give it a name, and I'm just going to say save for now. Okay, so now that I have my gate enabled folder, I'm going to add content. Now, everything about gating is a step-by-step procedural thing. You can't do step 5 before step 1. You just have to follow the steps to create the whole thing. So once I've created my folder, I'm going to add content, and there's 2 ways to add content. You can do the basic file upload, or you could do the drag and drop. If you have a lot of files, we say do the file drag and drop, where you just drag all your files from wherever you've saved it, and you place it out into your course. Now, I only, for this example, have 1 or 2 files, so I'm going to do the basic upload. I want to make sure that I've selected chapter 1 because I want all my content to go in chapter 1. So here I come to tools and do upload and select basic upload, and then I will browse for my files. Okay. And I'm going to have a final study guide. And it shows me it has successfully uploaded all the files. I'm going to get out of here, and there I have my lecture notes. Now, if I wanted to add an assignment piece to make sure that they have actually read through all these notes before they take that assignment and move on to chapter 2, what do? Well, I need to step out of here and go to my, oops, I guess I should never use that. Go to my assignments, because all assignments are housed in the assignment section. So I have a quiz that's already created, but I want to make this quiz gated. So I could use existing assignments, or I could create brand new assignments that are specifically for gated. And the reason I say this is that perhaps you just want a particular section of your course that's gated, but not the whole thing. So you could use that. So we're going to click on this example that I have, and oops. Sometimes I get clicker happy, and that's where I am right now. So I clicked on the Edit Assignment Settings. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make your assignment available. And the reason for doing this is if it's gated, students can't access it anyway. They won't be able to access to it unless you put a date and unless you publish it. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make it available. There is no expiration date because all gating assignments, you can pretty much, they don't expire. I mean, once they go through the gate, they can always go back. So that property just doesn't work for that. If you were interested in putting the grade posted date, I think you can. And that what happens is once they've taken that assignment, they can get to see the points, the grades right away. I'm not going to focus too much on the other things, but what I do want to do is I wanted to show you where to create the link. Here's one that says create link. So we can click on that. And then we'll ask you, where do you want to place this assignment? So I want to select, so I'm going to browse, and this will pull up a file structure of my course, and I'm going to select chapter 1. And then I want to say, yes, this is where I want to move it. I want to place a link there. Now, when you set up an assignment, you could do 3 different things. I didn't do something right. I can see that. Let me go back. There's 3 things that you can do when you're doing an assignment. When it's gated, you can set that up to be a submission. They can just click on the assignment and submit to move on. Or you can set it by percentage that you want them to achieve like 60% before they move on to the next content. Or you could do it by points. And obviously that window didn't come from me because I did something wrong, so I'm going to go back. I select my assignment. Let's see. Okay. All right, this is the part. Let me go back so I can have everyone follow what I did. So here's my assignment listing. I click on that assignment and I go to Edit Assignment Settings. And this allows me to edit the assignment in any way. But right now I just want to focus on making it a gated. So I'm going to select this little checkbox that shows me that it's going to now be a part of a gating assignment. Makes the assignment a gated. And then I'm going to say show more options. And if I really was fussy, I could even add an extra point to this, like saying I want a confirmation number after they submit. So just so that I know that they're submitting and it's unique to each student. And then I'm going to say save. Now this is where it'll ask me, now do you want percentage, points, or submission? So I want percentage. And I say, when I select that, it opens a new window and it says, well, how much do you want them to get before they pass the gate? So I'm going to say 70%. And I'm going to say save. And then it will say, where do you want to save it? Where do you want this assignment link to be placed? What we're doing is we're actually creating a link in the Manage Files section. That's what we're doing. So I'm going to say that, and I'm going to select. Come on. Okay, so I'm all ready. And as you can see, this also has a new icon next to it. And that represents gating as well. So I'm going to get out of this section, go back to my tools, and go back to my Manage Files. And, oh, that's not the right Manage Files. This one. But it hasn't updated, so I need to re-click on that. And it did not listen to me. So I'm just going to have to go back and click on that Create Link again. And create that. Yeah, I think so. I did this part first, and then I did the gating part, so that didn't work. Hopefully it should work. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to Manage Files, and for some reason, it just doesn't like me today. Do you know how computers just don't like you in the day you're presenting? And I'm kind of going, there you go. Okay, so there we have our content, and we have our assignment piece, and now the next step is to decide which parts do you want to gate. Because as you can see, they're just open right now. These little green arrows just means they're open, they're waiting for your decision. So I could start by saying I want to gate that, and it turns it into a little red stop sign. That kind of says that's gated. And then I don't really want to gate the second part, but I want to gate the third part. I want to gate the final exam study guide. So you can do different options. If you had a lot of content and this page was like 1 page long, you could choose gating for some and non-gated for some. You could have several assignments in there. You can do a whole slew of things. Just to keep it simple for this example, I just decided to use smaller amount of content so it's easier. But I created another example for another course, and I kind of wanted to show you how it could look. So here is a course on Introduction to Botswana, which I love using as my dummy course. But what I did was create a lot of chapters, and within each chapter, for some I have even subfolders. So, for example, they'll come to first day of class and they'll go through all these different things that I want them to do, which is the basic, you know, have they got their technical help, have they got their computer set, what are their textbooks, what are some of the activities I want them to do, and once they've done all that, and I've gated everything, so I want them to go through all that, because sometimes we put all that information and they just don't want to read and they start worrying about the assignment pieces. So, then I have another folder within that folder. This is a subfolder, and I call it Overview. So I click on that, and again, there's a whole bunch of information I want students to go through. And in the end, there's 2 pre-tests for some reason, but I only have 1 appearing in the course. And I'll show you what it looks like from the student's viewpoint as well. So this is an example of if you had a lot of information, you could break it down into chapters, and each of them are gated, as you can see. And this also shows you like something is gated, something is not gated, so you have different options. Now, along with the design, and when you're thinking about the design and you're thinking about, okay, what content I'm going to upload and what are the assessment pieces in my course for my gated part, here's a very good example in the help. So if you go under Design Your Gates, here's an example. She's got, like Amanda Truss has created this for us. She works on our help, and she's done a great job because she's gone down here and giving you examples so you can look at what it will look like. And it will help you further when you're designing your course. The one other thing that I thought was really neat was that I think that everybody could use when they're creating their, if I can find it now. Right here. She has created this gating design guide. And if you click on this, and you need PDF Acrobat Reader to be able to read this file, and if not, there's a link right there on that page that you could download. Now what she's done is she has really shown you what a one-path design will look like, and PDF takes a long time to load up, so we'll just have to wait. Perfect. Now this is an interactive kind of document, and I think it's excellent. She has this one path that you can, if you were creating one path, gating course content, this is what you could use. You could take this and say, this is my item I want to place. Do I want this part gated? I can say yes. And you type in your next item, select the options that you have. And once you're done, you could perhaps print that out and take that structure, go back to your manage files, and just work off that. Remember how we talked about the pen and paper? Well, this is a step further. You could actually go in, open this up, type in your course content, choose your selection, print it out, and go back. I think it's excellent. I really thought this was a great way, because it's confusing. When you have a lot of content and you're trying to create this on your own in your office, and it can be frustrating. And I'll be honest, I was trying to create this for the practice part, and I had a hard time too. And I thought, oh gosh, and I had lots and lots of folders and lots of chapters. I was starting to lose it after a while. Like, is this gated or is this not? How's this going to appear? So there's a lot of back and forth, between the student side and the instructor side. Well, this kind of takes that element a little bit away. And so when you're finally done creating the whole structure, you can go back into the course and look at it from the student view. And it should work because, you've got the structure right in front of you. Well, let's look at a little bit on the multiple paths. So she's got like gated one, which is gate folder 1, and then you've got several items, and then you've got subfolders, which is what most courses should look like. Like if you have a lot of content for your students, this is probably the structure that you might end up having. And who knows, the first gate could just be the basics for the first day of class, and you don't want that gated. Maybe you just want that open. And you also want chapter 1 to be open at the same time. It depends on your style. So you could use the multiple paths, where they could open chapter 1 and chapter 2 together. So again, you could print this, answer your questions, and print this off and use that as well. So, moving back, if I can figure out where I am. And this is all within K-State Online. Just click on the help and go to the gating section, and it's all there. So we've got as far as, we've got as far as loading our content, and we've put in our assessment piece as well, and I need to be in the right course. I have too many courses open. There we go. So I've put in my quiz. So after you've got all your content in place, this is where you come in and rearrange things. If you didn't use that design template, if you were just creating it on your own and you just wanted to put all the content in there and then stop and think about the flow, this is the time to do it. So you come in and move things around. So let's say I wanted to move, I don't know what I want to move. Let's just say I wanted to move building online lectures to point 2, even though it doesn't make sense. I'm going to move it. And then I'm going to have no gated on the first part and then gated on all the other 3 content. And when I'm ready, I publish. Because once you publish, your students get to see it. And so you want to wait on publishing any content till the very end of the course. So I'm going to publish everything after I've rearranged and made sure that's the order I want. Okay. And then we can preview. There's a preview button right here. You can preview from here. Or you can always go out to the course and see it from the student point of view. But this is pretty much what students see as well. So this is what it says. This is how it's going to appear. I have chapter 1, which I didn't gate. Chapter 2, sorry, which I didn't gate, as you can see, the little arrow. So it appears. And then students can go through that notes. Then they can come and look at the PowerPoint. And until they look at the PowerPoint, they pretty much can't move to the other stuff. As you can see, it's all grayed out. So this little piece here is usually for instructors when they're previewing the content, like click here to stimulate the gate. But students don't see that. They literally have to click on this and go through the content before they can move to the next step. This little button is kind of important, refresh gates, not for you as an instructor, but mostly for your students. What happens is sometimes I could go through clicking on a content and I open it, and maybe the browser just doesn't update and refresh. So you want to advise your students to refresh once they have gone through a content. If they say, oh, I still can't see anything, well, maybe you should try the refresh gate button, because that will sometimes help in opening the next gated material. And I'm just going to click this. So this is how it appears. And then finally, when I click on this as well, I will be able to see the quiz. Are you going to work? Yes. And it says not available because I think the dates were not set properly. But they should be able to take this exam and then hit submit, and you should be able to see the results. So that's how you would create content if you wanted to create gated content in your course. There's a couple of more things that I would like to quickly go through. There is a gating progress, and I'm going to try this. Yes, Ben? So it's going to work? Okay. Well, let me back up. So when you want to see the progress of your students, now this is a point where you've set up your course and students have started taking that, and you want to see how many students have crossed certain gates, or what is their progress, where are they in the course, because automated sometimes just means self-paced. So you'd like to see where your students are in the class. Well, the gating progress allows you to do that. So I'm going to click on that. I have a couple of students here, but I guinea pigged my husband into taking all the gated stuff to make sure it worked. So I'm going to see if we have any statistics. Because as an instructor, when I was logging in, I would just click, click, and click, and I wasn't sure how it would look like on the student end. So I wanted to make sure that it really works. This takes a little bit of a time, and I don't know if it's going to work because I've had some problems with it earlier. But what it does, it shows you, like on a bar, like what they've taken, and the doors that they've crossed, the gates that they've crossed, they will show up in a little folder icon, and you can see that. Apparently it's still not working. You think? Okay. Let me see if there's something in help. Yeah?
So what sorts of files can be gated?
Oh, anything, literally. I don't know about media, though. I don't know if we can do, like, if we put an audio piece, we can. Okay. So, yeah, you can use Excel, PowerPoints, HTML documents, PDFs, audio, I guess. and also assignments. But in assignments, you have to be careful. You can only use online, timed, and manual. You can't use Scantron and file share and all the other stuff yet. You have to remember, though, that if you put in a manual assignment, you literally have to go in yourself and allow your students to move on. So you can do that by granting them an exception, or you could go in to the scores tab and enter a grade because it's a manual assignment. So for example, like if I had an essay that I wanted to submit, I set up a gate and I have an essay that they need to submit, and that's my gating, that they need to get 70% on this essay, which I as an instructor have to grade. So what I'm going to do is grade that essay, go back into the scores tab, enter the percentage point for that essay, and that is what allows the student to move on. If you didn't want to make life that complicated and you just wanted them to move on without worrying about points or percentages, I would just select the submission button. So when they go through the content, they get to an assignment, they click on that assignment, they submit, and they move on. You know, it just depends on what you need for your course. But yes, it's kind of limited to only online time and manual for now. Yes?
Let's say you gated a Microsoft Word document. What's the criteria for opening that gate? Is it just simply opening the Microsoft Word document or saving it to your desktop?
Yes, the question is, if you had a Word document, what would the student need to do to pass that? Yes, you just click on that Word document, they open it, they view it, they maybe perhaps save it out, for all you know, read it later. But that would be the criteria just to move on, to read PowerPoints, to read maybe an article or something, yeah. So, yeah. Yes?
In the past, I think integrity files, it was not possible to make those gates. Is that still the case?
You know, I still don't know that. Does anybody know Ben integrity lectures? Can we? No idea.
I don't know.
We can find out, yeah. But Shalin, you?
Sure. Yeah, but if you leave your name and contact information, we can find out.
Okay. I'm going to quickly go to the progress statistics and just show you, since I don't know if for the course. I don't know. I'm going to look quickly. Nope. Same problem. It keeps on telling me it's doing it, and it's not. Could be. So I'm just going to show you the example from the help section. This is kind of what you see. You can see it by item, like, you know, homework 4 or chapter 1, and how many people have actually opened it. It will say 5 people have opened it. And like, as you can see further down, like essay 1, only 1 person has taken it out of 5. You can do that. Or you can look at it by students too. So if you wanted to just track one person's progress, you can see there's their names, and this is how many times they've opened, and you know, some of the blanks I assume is where they haven't opened, or maybe it wasn't gated. That's another thing. If it's not gated, then it won't show. But this is kind of what it shows, like, you know, if they've opened or if they haven't opened. There's a couple of times where there's 2 other things, I guess, that's part of the help, is sometimes you can change assignments which are not gated to gated. You can always do that. So if you had a lot of assignments in your assignment folder, place, and you thought, well, I want to use one of these to gated, you can always change any one of those assignments to gated. There's, like I showed you, just go in there, make it gated, move it to the folder that you want to. So you can change any non-gated assignment to a gated. And then you can also sometimes grant exceptions. As you can see, there's a section here. What that means is you can allow students to perhaps take it again or give them more time if they run into technical problems. But the truth of the matter with gated assignments is, with gated content is, you can kind of go back and look at it again. You know, it's multi-take in a way. Students can keep taking it over and over. There's a two-way process in that. It's not like if I go down, then I can't go back up. I can go back up and look at the stuff that I submitted. So you have to be careful on that. If you didn't want students to see assignments at all, a quick, easy tip for that would be just to unpublish that piece. You know, once they've gone through it, you don't want them to keep going back, just hide it. Hide it from the course so it's not available anymore. And that's the only way you can do it. You can't really remove it. So, any questions? Okay, so this is what it would look like on students' end as well. But again, since I'm logged in as an instructor, I see this instruction, which students will not see. And once they've clicked on it again, each will open up So open with, yeah, I want to open this. And I stole one of your lectures. Well, I think you built this, didn't you? I just want to use it as an example. So if I refresh gates, oh, come now, open. This is supposed to work. So I have it open here, so it's definitely supposed to work. Okay, never mind, it's working. That's what we're going to go with. It's going to work. I don't know for what, maybe it's not refreshing or something, but that's how it should open up, and that's what you should see. So yeah.
The grade part is the part that we have to get, that's gated.
Mm-hmm.
So we can kind of get a sense something is there. We just
And then when you,
can't get to it yet.
right, and then when you get to quiz 1, since I've set it to 70% or something, they have to get 70. And if they don't, they can retake it until they get to 70 before they can move on. So like if I had a chapter 2 right here, it would be grayed out until they get the 70%. So hope that makes sense.